learning is painful. It's just a very, very painful thing. That really is what a founder needs to be doing, is learning. You're learning what your product is. You're learning how it fits within your competitors. You're learning. But it is not, to your point, it's not a simple download of information. Yes, you may be able to pull the Wikipedia information about everything, be able to look around a room and know what kind of TV a TV is. That's not an important kind of learning. The kind of learning that matters and that a founder needs to do, or that anybody, changing their life needs to do. It is emotional. It is difficult. It challenges you. It forces you to look back at everything you've done and wonder if you've done it right. Learning is painful. We had 60 some people, and we're making robots that replace security guards. The problem is we hadn't sold one. 0 sales. We've raised at that point probably about $30 million. We have cool offices, we have all cool engineers, wearing t-shirts, and we're ordering DoorDash every day. And we're spending, I think we were spending $1.4 million a month, and we have no sales. We have, 20 some salespeople. We have 6 marketing people. Nobody's moving any of these robots anywhere. All of a sudden we have this moment where I'm just like, what are we even doing here? Right. And what am I doing here? I was planning on going and just saying, I'm just going to execute whatever business books I've read. And, I go in, I'm a nice manager every day, and say, compromise with all of my employees. And I say, can we get this done by, April 10th? And they go, oh, we wouldn't be able to do that for XYZ. And I go, well, those reasons make sense. So we'll push it off till July. And I was doing all of that. And in so doing, I was hugely resentful about the entire company, and I was angry at myself. Aristotle had kind of primed me to all of this, but Plato has a famous thing called the tripartite soul. The idea is, Socrates says there are 3 parts to a human. Brian Chesky, founder of Airbnb, right? One of the things that he said that will always stick with me is, a company grows as fast as its founder learns. And that's always that feeling, is like when you can tap into that. That's why it's a spiritual journey more than it is a career journey. Let robots do what robots do best, but you've got to figure out what humans do best then, and it's not robotic.
This is the Business Philosopher Within Your podcast. I'm your host, Bhavesh Naik. There is a belief in business that scaling is about systems, hiring, and execution. But at some point, most founders run into something else. The way we manage ourselves begins to shape what the company can become. And sometimes what we feel, not just what we think, plays a bigger role than we expect. Mike LeBlanc is a founder working at the intersection of leadership, technology, and personal growth. He spent 13 years as a Marine Corps officer, including time at the Pentagon, before co-founding Cobalt Robotics, a company that scaled to a $360 million in valuation. Today, he is a co-founder of Foundation Future Industries with a mission to build the world's most capable humanoid robots. They're currently raising at a $3.5 billion valuation with a long-term vision of building a $50 billion company. Along the way, he's been exploring a question in real time. How does a founder keep evolving fast enough for the company they're building? His work touches everything from reverse engineering that $50 billion vision to something more human, like the role of emotion, such as anger in leadership. I'm so happy to have you on this podcast, Mike.
Thanks so much.
And a special shout out to you, our listener. Hey, listen, we're not just a podcast. We are a movement, and you are the business philosopher. We learn from each other and grow with each other. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, share, and comment. But most important, ask and answer questions. Thank you for tuning in. So, Mike, you went to a college not far from where I'm at. I'm in northwest of Washington, D.C., about 15 miles, right? So I'm D.C. area. And you went to college in St. James, I think, in Annapolis, which is not too far from
Yeah.
St. John, right? And there is a moment that you talk about, which is that you started going to college and you started seeing yourself as, I think you used the term blue blood, right? You started thinking that, hey, I'm this intellectual now, right? I'm a thinker now. And you started reading some Greek philosophy, right? Aristotle and Plato, if I'm not mistaken. And you started reading that. And you thought that, hey, yeah, I'm going to find something that is more intellectual than than being human, right? And human condition. But you found something different. You were surprised by the philosophies of these Greek greats, right? So take us back behind the scenes a little bit. What was happening at this time, and how did you start exploring these philosophies? And what was that big insight that you had?
I think that most people go to college thinking that what they're going to learn is going to confirm their beliefs.
Ah, yeah,
So they're
yeah,
they're very excited to go and learn how smart they already were, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that was me to a T. I thought I have the right view on
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to open up, I'm studying the ancient Greeks. So I'm going to read Plato and I'm going to read Aristotle, I'm going to read Thucydides and Plutarch. And they're all going to tell me how smart I was in
Yeah.
different words. And there's
Right.
almost there's voyeuristic quality to it where you think that you're going to, open up the pages of, these old Greeks that didn't know much, but still you're piecing together their words and you're like, even they knew, what we
Yeah.
know today. And so there's the superiority in your
Right.
mind of how we think. And we think, well, we get it all right. And if you go in the past, people had it all wrong.
Right.
So what those views looked like to me were, there was no need for barbarism anymore. There's no need for men, really. There's no need for fighting. There's no need for conflict. There's no need for anger. Uh, these were all just things that, any person that's getting along in the corporate world knows. You can't go and be emotional at work. You can't be angry. Like, who gets angry about something? You can't be,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something much lower.
Yeah.
And instead, when I started reading these books, I would read them very carefully. That's not what they say.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
they're interesting. I mean, it goes back as far as the Bible, right? Two people can read the same passage and see something different.
Exactly.
But these, when you really get into them, it's clear. I mean, Aristotle says that anger, for example, is a virtue.
Mm.
That was a shocking thing to me, that
Yeah.
Aristotle
Yeah.
thought that anger could be a virtue. He says that shame, that being ashamed of yourself, is
Yeah.
almost a virtue.
Yeah.
It's not a virtue because it means that you have something bad with you and you need to be able to have all the virtues. But
Right.
he's
Right.
basically saying shame is a good thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, they all think that there is excellence in war. Aristotle again thinks that the only place that you can have courage is in wartime. So that's
Mm.
that's not just the
Yeah.
highest form, that's the only form.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you end up getting this new view of the world where you say, what if these guys are right? What if
Yeah.
these guys aren't just mistaken old men in this?
Right. Yeah.
What if they have a point? And that was sort of the insight that I had that drove, I'd say, the next 20 plus years of my life.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And you hit on something so important in my view, because here we are. We look at business world, and it almost feels to me like we have done everything we can to take emotion out of everything.
Yes.
Our business literature doesn't talk about emotion. At work, we're not supposed to get quote unquote emotional, right? We're not supposed to talk about emotions, right? We're not supposed to even be emotional. We're supposed to be this intellectual automaton, which
Yeah.
is the business that you're in today, right? And we're gonna talk about that. It's the irony of that. We're building these AI machines, and we expect ourselves, this last, I don't know, few hundred years of our history, we want ourselves to be like machines, right?
Yes.
And you found something different. These greats are saying that, that's not necessarily true, right? Shame and anger. By the way, courage, is that also an emotion in your view? You said the word courage, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think much more in terms of virtues and vices than I do in
Yeah. Yeah.
emotions.
So, and also there's, I think there, I don't know which one of these two greats, Plato or Aristotle, they talk about there is three parts to what they call the soul, right? Could you
Yes.
kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, so Aristotle had kind of primed me to all of this, but
Yeah.
Plato has a famous thing called the tripartite soul. That's what
Yeah.
people refer to it as.
Yeah.
And the idea is Socrates says there are three parts to a human.
Right.
Now, these two of them are basically what we see in Looney Tunes, right? There's a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other.
Right.
And everybody knows this debate very well that
Yeah.
you're going, the
Yeah.
devil going, why not order the chocolate cake? Let's go.
Right. Yeah.
And you got the angel on the other side going, I think it's, we probably don't need that. That's a
Mhm.
low calories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's got those two same parts, right? For
Yeah.
the angel, he says that he has the little man stand in for it. So the mind is actually just like another little man sitting
Yeah.
in your brain. So that's the part that we relate to the most.
Right.
But he's small.
Yeah.
And then you have your appetites. That's our normal devil, and
Right.
that is he represents with a hydra, a many-headed.
Yeah. Right.
Every time you cut off one of the heads, two grow back in its place. So if you tell
Yeah.
it, no, we're not going to eat chocolate cake, you just want more, and you keep wanting more.
Yeah.
So what he added though was that anger was not in those appetites,
Yeah.
and to me, anger would have been one of a classic hydra head. You get angry about something, it's
Right.
all
Right.
blood, right? You're seeing red. You can't think about anything else. It's almost like an addiction. It's something like that. Socrates breaks down and says, no, there's actually a third part, and it's anger, and we're going to represent it with a lion.
Okay.
And so you all of a sudden, he says you've got to picture the three of these existing: the little man, a hydra, many-headed beast, and a lion, all
Right.
living in the same body, and
Yeah.
they all got to make decisions together. And he said that's what life is. And that was a shocking change for me, because why would anger be separate? And why would he represent it with this noble creature, the lion?
Yeah.
And then further, everybody knows the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. I didn't know where that third part would come in.
Right.
And so that to me was a great mystery when I read it. And and it stuck with me for a long time of trying to think, what is this lion, and how do you employ it? How do you work the lion?
Yes, absolutely. And where did this get tested for you? Was it after you became a Marine, uh, after the college, or was it before in college?
So
Somewhere along those lines?
all through college, I would be talking about this, discussing it, reading it, thinking about it, and you get some kind of intellectual hold on what's being talked about. But it really became personal for me when I was in the Marine Corps. So after I just finished a very tough course called the Infantry Officer course, where for 10 weeks you basically tell your hydra to shut up. There are weeks when you barely sleep, weeks when you barely eat. You're just not giving in to any of your desires throughout any of this.
Right.
And by the end of that, I graduated, and I thought, I made it. I'm an infantry officer. I'm very proud of myself, and you push yourself all this hard. So I checked into a hotel room. I was starting a new course the next day, and I got to stay in a hotel room now. So now, instead of sleeping out on the ground, right, I have a bed. I order Subway. I order Wendy's. I order, I go out and I buy every chocolate and candy and gummy and, chip, whatever known to man, right? And I bring it all back to my hotel room.
Yeah.
And I just start crushing these things. And I'm just eating and eating and eating. And I think, everybody knows this experience. As I've talked to other people about it, I don't think they binge quite as hard as as my family can get into.
Yeah.
But I keep eating all this stuff, and at the beginning you're thinking, it's rationalization. You're like, this is great. I deserve it. I've been through all this. You keep eating and you go, oh man, it's gonna be a lot to work off, and why am I taking all this? I'm gonna feel sick. And you haven't done it in a long time. Let's keep pushing. And I continue on until I'm just feeling, totally sick. And I pick up my favorite of all these junk foods, which is peanut butter.
Mm.
And so I've loved peanut butter since I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I open up that big jar of peanut butter, and I just start scooping it in with a spoon. So I'm not even putting it on a cracker. I'm not putting it on a pretzel. I'm just eating this thing straight. And as I'm eating, I start to realize this huge jar of peanut butter is about halfway down, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate all this, right? And I start feeling that shame. But the Hydra, in me is just plowing through, right? And just goes like, doesn't matter, and my rational part is coming in and going, Hydra, you got to take it easy. You can't be eating a full jar of peanut butter. Like you can't get in like this. And Hydra's just like, back off. Like
Yeah.
I'm eating now. And that's what's going on in me. And so I'm like hating myself as I eat this peanut butter now. And I'm just getting to the bottom of the jar. And when I finally hit the bottom of the jar and I start to be done, I'm so disgusted with myself
Mm.
that I get angry. And
Ah,
now my rage at myself has now overtaken the rationality and overtaken the power of the Hydra. And I'm so mad at myself that I tell myself, that's it. Drop this. I was eyeballing ice cream. I went and flushed the ice cream down the toilet. I took a big spoon and flushed it
right.
down.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't trust my Hydra with it. And I went and put on my running shoes. This is all at midnight, right? This is midnight before I begin a course. I put
Yeah.
on my shoes and I force myself to go run 10 miles. And the whole time out there, I am feeling like I'm going to throw up. I'm feeling so disgusting. I'm exhausted. It's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Takes me about 2 hours. And so I arrive back at my hotel. It's like 2 a.m. I am so bloated, sick feeling, terrible feeling. And I go to sleep, finally just exhausted with having the three parts fight each other. And I have to wake up at 6 a.m. for my new course. And, so 4 hours later, I'm there looking disheveled, broken, big bags under my eyes. And
Yeah.
everybody's like, man, this guy partied last night. And it was like, no, I was at war with myself last night. And that's where I really started to understand. It was that part that came in that
Yeah.
was disgusted with myself, that rage. That was the lion. And that's
Yeah.
the lion looking at the rest of me and just going, I won't have it anymore. This is not to my standard. You will get to my
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah. That is such a breakthrough moment. That story is because here we are, the Western civilization and now the entire civilization today, because, entire civilization is the world civilization is influenced by the Western civilization. We think that being rational is higher than being quote unquote emotional. And your rational mind was kind of justifying, eating all the junk food and the peanut butter and finishing, going through the half and then finishing the rest. Your rational mind was kind of going along with it. Let's do it. We've worked hard all these years. Come on, it's just one night, a couple hours. Let's do it. And then the lion comes in, and so it supersedes. So there is this kind of hierarchy. Yeah, it's almost like, right. So
Absolutely.
right. So
Well,
any
well,
thoughts on that?
this
Yeah.
is what's really interesting. So Plato says, so since you have three is a really interesting number in politics, right? I have
Yeah.
3 kids, so I get to see this principle played out all the time.
Yes.
2 against 1 is powerful in anything, you
Yeah.
know? And so I'm going, do you kids want to go for a hike or go to the beach today? And it's hike, beach. And then they go, well, but don't you want to go on a hike with me? Yeah, I guess I do. And it swings and they go, why did you switch your mind? But that's the power of 3 is that
Right.
there's always a decision vote.
Yeah.
And that's what Plato says is when you're laying these out, the little man, he can never take on the Hydra. There's no way.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
little man can only take on the Hydra if he
Yeah.
had the lion as his ally.
Ah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the job then, the task for us as humans is to get our reason to start working with our anger so that we
Yes.
can work against desire and appetites and short-term thinking and no consequence thinking.
Yeah.
And only if we have anger as our ally can we achieve that. And
Yes.
that's an interesting, that's an interesting thought.
Yes. Something else in that moment, which is that, we think that learning, the definition of learning, right, is we think that, we need to evolve. And one of the things that I like to kind of follow on this podcast is, our internal growth affects the way we build organizations, right? And the better we learn, the better evolve we become, the bigger and more successful our organizations become, right? Whatever they may be. And so then what is learning? So learning often is seen as collecting information on top of more information. right? You said this so beautifully at the start of this session, where you said that we go to school to validate our beliefs, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, right? We don't go there to have them challenged, right? So, but the growth happens when they do get challenged. And that experience is not intellectual, rational experience.
That's
It's
right.
it,
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it because
yeah,
yeah, I love that. I had so my first company, so fast forward out of the
right.
Marine Corps,
Please, yeah,
I co-founded a company called Cobalt Robotics,
yeah,
and Cobalt, we were backed by Sequoia. It's a very, very big investor with
sure,
us.
yes, yeah,
Sequoia so Sequoia would bring us out, they'd bring founders out on these elaborate trips, and
yeah,
and I got to go, camping, this, like,
hmm,
fancy really fancy camping one time,
yeah,
and they brought out Elon Musk came with us, they brought out Brian Chesky came
uh-huh,
with us. It's about 100 of us,
yeah,
and so you have these kind of intimate but powerful conversations,
yeah,
and, Brian Chesky, founder of Airbnb,
sure,
right? One of the things that he said that will always stick with me is a company grows as fast as its founder learns.
mm, yes, yeah,
And I hadn't put it that way. I definitely noticed that phenomenon before, but that really is what a founder needs to be doing is learning. You're learning what your
yeah,
market is. You're learning what your product is. You're learning how it fits within your competitors. You're learning, but it is not, to your point, it's not a simple download of information. I hear all these people that talk about Neuralink or something, and they go,
right,
"Oh, we're just going to be able to download." Yes, you may be able to pull the Wikipedia information about everything, be able to look around a room and know what kind of TV a TV is.
right,
Uh, that's not an important kind of learning.
yeah,
The kind of learning that matters and that a founder needs to do, or that anybody, changing their life needs to
yeah,
do, it is emotional. It is difficult. It challenges you. It forces you to look back at everything you've done and wonder if you've done it right. You know, learning is painful.
yes,
You know,
100%,
it's just
yeah,
a very, very painful thing. And so
yeah,
that's what I think that you need to keep gearing up for all the time. And that's
yeah,
where you find this drive in yourself to continue putting yourself through all the challenges.
absolutely. Now, you were 13 years a Marine, right? And then you work for Pentagon. Was there a moment where you stepped out of from the Pentagon, right, into being a Marine Corps, into being a founder, right, Cobalt, and was there a moment when this came to like a personal experience where you said that it's difficult, it's painful, right? Growth and learning is so could you take us behind the scenes in a particular moment where that kind of hit you in a personal way?
It's interesting that many, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's the other thing is
Yeah.
you've got to have a strong stomach for this stuff because it's constant. Just things aren't adding up, right? The world is not the way that I want it to. It's not,
r-
your dreams are off track.
Right.
And but at Cobalt, so I'm running this company. We've had probably at the time, I think we had 60 people. We had
Yeah.
60 some people,
Right.
and we're making robots that replace security guards.
Sure.
Uh, the problem is we hadn't sold one,
Oh,
so
okay.
we
Yeah.
have zero sales.
Uh-huh.
We've raised at that point probably about $30 million. We have cool offices. We have all cool engineers. Wearing t-shirts and we're ordering DoorDash every day, and
Yeah. Yeah.
kombucha around the office all over. So we're spending. I think we were spending $1.4 million a month,
Wow.
and we have no sales. And
Mm.
so we're sitting in the boardroom, with our board, and our board's just like, well, you guys have the product to the point, right? The product is ready enough. You've got to get it out to
Yeah.
customers. That's the number one goal. We're like, that makes sense. That's the number one goal. We talked to the whole company. That's the number one goal.
Right.
Uh, and and still we have 20 some salespeople. We have 6 marketing people. Nobody's moving any of these robots anywhere.
Mm.
And I start digging into this because they all, of course, all salespeople have these big pipelines and everything, and
Right.
start digging in, and nobody has anything real. right? And
Yeah.
as I look at them, I go, nothing's real.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we have this moment where I'm just like, what are we even doing here, right? And what am I doing here? I was planning on going and just saying, I'm just gonna execute whatever business books I've read, and I go in, I'm a nice manager every day, and say,
Right.
compromise with all of my employees, and I
Yeah.
say, can we get this done by April 10th? And they go, oh, we wouldn't be able to do that for XYZ. And I go, well, those reasons make sense, so we'll push it off till July. And
Yeah.
I was doing all of that, and in so doing, I was hugely resentful
Uh-huh.
about the entire company, and I was angry at myself
Right.
that I'm like, why are we not moving
Yeah.
anything here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was where I started to realize, I was like, nobody else can do this. None of the salespeople can go and solve this problem. You can't hire somebody to
Right.
solve your biggest problem. You can't hire somebody to solve product market fit.
Hmm.
Nobody will care enough. You cannot do it.
Yeah.
And so we were going to run out of money. We were spending so much. And so I went to my co-founders and I wrote a list of, I think it was like 25 different actions.
Right.
And I said, if we don't do these 25 different actions, the business is going to die. And so if we
Yeah.
don't take these 25 actions right now, I'm going to leave because we're already done.
Yeah.
And that involved, laying off about half of the people that we had.
Yeah.
It involved getting rid of our entire sales team, our
Mm.
entire marketing team.
Yeah.
It was complete rearrangement of all of these things.
Yeah.
And, my co-founders pushed back on like one or two. And I thought, yeah, we kind of amended
Yeah.
like one or two of them, but the majority of the list stuck. And
Right.
so we went through that whole process. Was horrible. It was horrible.
Mm.
People are very emotional. People are crying through it. The people who remain are very angry with us, and they're like, well, why are we mismanaged? All these things.
Yeah.
But through that, we ended up finding our first sales. We ended up finding traction, and and we ended up, we continued on for another 8 years after that. Right.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
that to me was that I always remember that was a deep learning moment. That's what it feels like to learn, is the
Yes.
realization that what you're doing just isn't working.
Yeah.
And having to choose actions that, you really wish you didn't have to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And here's a this is a great moment because there's an angle here, which is that, 7 billion of us on this planet, we're all human beings, and we have, each one of us has this tripartite, as you call it, right? Working within us. So when you're working with other people, and when you're managing and leading a group of people, whether it's 2 people or 200 or 2,000 people, they bring their own mix of, and this unique mix of, I have to believe that, it's not exactly the same thing, right? It's sort of it's like a metaphor in a way. So they play out in different ways within each one of them, right? So then you have to manage that, not just in yourself, but also probably, or at least address in others, or be mindful of the fact that they also bring those things to the table, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Go ahead.
Go
Sam.
ahead. No, yeah.
Well, you're just reminding me. I mean, this is Hobbes, right? So Hobbes
Yeah.
and Thomas Hobbes,
Yeah.
the political philosopher,
Right.
and one of his interesting insights was that when a lot of people get together and start acting together,
Right.
they start acting as if they're one human.
Oh, yeah.
So the characteristics of an
Yeah.
individual are the same as the characteristics of a nation, are the
Yes.
characteristics of a company,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so you start finding this is not just an internal battle. What you
Yeah.
learn in your internal battle about how to manage it is
Yes.
key to how you end up leading your organization.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. It's like, when we say, your group has a personality kind of thing, right? Each group,
Yeah.
this group has a different personality than the other group that I'm part of, right? And they vibe in a different way. So is there any insight on how, how you deal with that when others are also bringing their own sense of those, the little man and the lion, and, the hydra?
Well, that's where the key issue came in
Yeah.
with how I was running Cobalt
Right.
was, you know, a different look at that same story, right,
Right.
was all of the engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, any
Yeah.
part of them, they were all wanting to give into their hydra of
Yeah.
they wanted time. They wanted time to figure these things out, and
Yeah.
so all between, the little man that was going, I want to really work through this perfectly. I don't want to put anything out that I'm embarrassed of. And you had the hydra that
Yeah.
is going to them going, yeah, we should have a lot of time. We
Yeah.
raised all this money. Let's take 2 years and figure this all out before we put it out there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and the conversation goes on between the hydra and the little man.
Yeah.
They make comfort-based decisions
Right.
and they make rational decisions.
Yeah.
The actual thing that you need is the lion to be able to push you out, right? And that's
Yes.
what I had to act like in that scenario,
Yeah.
was going, I'm not going to take it anymore. That
Yes.
that is a major part of any business, is when the founder, and really you don't even have to be the founder to have this moment, but it's just, I'm not doing this anymore.
You're right.
That's a very important point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it often involves being willing to walk away, right? But it's extremely emotional, but that's the catalyst for
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
I love there was a video my dad showed me one time, a Howard Stern video.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yeah.
Howard Stern, right, famous for,
Yeah.
having
Yeah. Yeah.
trips or whatever. And
Yeah.
but this was a leaked video of
Yeah.
him talking to his staff.
Right.
So it's not him on the show. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very different Howard Stern. It's not Howard Stern the character. This is
Yeah.
this is Howard
There's
Stern
the
the
real one. Yeah.
or businessman.
Yeah.
And he's in an auditorium. It's a great leaked video. I think it's from like 2013 or something like that.
Yeah.
But he gets up there and he's telling his staff he's so angry because
Yeah.
he says, why do we not have A-list guests every week on our show?
Yeah.
Why? And he's saying they were at Satellite at the time,
Right.
at Sirius. And he's going, we have 60 million listeners on Sirius. And we have at least half of those come just for the Howard Stern show. And he goes, and meanwhile, if David Bowie's going to put out a new record, he's going to go on David Letterman, who gets maybe 1 million a night. And he
Right.
goes, I've got 30 million. Why
Yeah.
isn't he coming to me? And my 30 million love rock and roll. Why don't they know that? And he's angry going through all these we made these people's careers. We bring these people on. We showcase them. They were nobody, and we brought them on, and we turn them into their hit record. He goes, does anybody know about this? No. Does anybody care? No.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is him being so sick of the way that things are run that he's saying, we're going to change around here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's such an inspiring video to me. As business owner, as somebody who runs a business,
Right.
because it is to a lot of people out there that think, no, you need to, be corporate and compromise and find consensus and all of these things. No, it's in those
Yeah.
Howard Stern moves where you say,
Yeah.
I'm sick of this. It's no one person's fault. If it were
Yeah.
one person's fault, you could, very calmly fire them.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
an organizational problem. And it takes that emotion. It takes the company seeing that you're not going to stand for this anymore.
Yeah.
That's the only path forward for you to really fix it.
Yes. Yes. And is there a way to, is there any intentionalities in terms of, kind of cultivating a culture where people are, it's not just when, the poo-poo hits the fan and we're like, oh, come on, let's get together and figure this out. Or can it be like embedded or inbred into the culture where, you can't expect that, that there is this is a cycle and this is where we are in the cycle. And, we're going to hit this wall and we're going to have to figure this out and get angry or feel ashamed first and then let the anger kick in and move forward as an organization. Is there some intentionality to that? Is that
I think that's
possible?
where people really like this idea of, feedback is a gift
Yeah.
and direct feedback, and we communicate with each other.
Right.
I see those words written on walls all throughout startups.
Mhm.
The hard thing is, in practice, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If you go to work, it's very hard to be direct and be liked.
Y-
And in any organization, it's very important to be liked because
Yes.
every startup is kind of like Survivor, and somebody is going to get kicked off.
Yeah.
So we've kind of taken this idea of we're going to have feedback and direct communication, but we've coupled it with this idea that somebody can not be a culture fit.
Yes.
When you do that, you've given that person a reason off the island. So,
Yeah.
so as soon as somebody comes into this,
Right.
they're like, why should I be the one that stands up and says the emperor has no clothes?
Yeah.
There's no
True.
need for me to do that. I don't need to be skylined. So they just go, somebody's probably thought about it. And,
Yes.
in a way, they're right, because that is the founder's job. That is the leader's job, it,
Yeah.
to look at this and go, I'm the one that this all falls on.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
I'm the one who has to stay. So it's I would love if it didn't need to come out in fits and spurts. Uh,
Yes.
but to me, that's a natural cycle. And you want
Yeah.
from being layoffs and we're changing the whole way that we're doing business. You want to keep those fits and spurts, smaller. But there is a way in which that's, a lot of good founders are angry a lot of the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's when sometimes this one of these videos leaks and it goes viral and it's good and the bad and the ugly and all the rest of it, right? But hopefully the organization moves forward, through that, right?
There's a great conversation recorded of John F. Kennedy, right?
Uh-huh.
So John F.
Yeah.
Kennedy, when he was president, we're all used to him here and say, we're gonna go to the moon
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
We're used to this JFK, but
Yeah.
there's a great phone call where someone from the military had spent a whole bunch of money on
Yeah.
a bathroom.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
They spent a
Yeah.
whole bunch of money,
Yeah.
and JFK is calling him, this general, and going,
Yeah.
"What the hell were you thinking? Do you know how
Yeah.
bad this is gonna look with me? I'm out there saying we need to save money, and you're out spending all this money on a bathroom, and sorry,
Yeah.
sir, And he's going, it was stupid,
Yeah.
and you hear this angry JFK. You hear what he was actually like picking up his phone behind the desk in the
Yeah.
Oval Office.
Yeah.
That is, that anger is right. And, and
Yeah.
going back to Aristotle's point,
Yeah.
anger is a virtue when,
Yeah.
you are angry at the right thing for the right amount of time. It's the right,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
we have road rage and we're way more angry than we should be about somebody cutting us off. That's,
Exactly. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
JFK being angry at this spending and this PR thing,
Yeah.
that's the right thing to be angry at. He didn't go fire the guy.
Yeah.
But he definitely called him to the carpet and was angry. And I think that's what a lot of founders, that's where they're holding themselves back, is instead of feeling acute anger,
Yeah.
they're feeling chronic resentment.
Ah, yes.
And so you need to find what is the appropriate level of anger, what is the appropriate punishment, what's the
Yeah.
appropriate way to handle this situation.
Yeah. Acute anger, but not chronic resentment.
Yeah.
That's a tremendous takeaway from this because there's a difference. And I have to believe that there has to be, you have to cultivate some kind of an awareness of what's going on inside here. I
Yeah.
find that, I'm in the learning and training and all that business for a very long time. And some folks resent that, having to look at yourself, right? And and you had to kind of cultivate that idea, right? Of looking at this guy right here, right? From where I'm looking out,
Yep.
looking in there. And any thoughts on how to cultivate that self-awareness? Is it something that it just happens by habit or repetition, or is there some trick to kind of getting there?
To me, when I started this sort of inner journey in college,
Yeah.
I was reading all of the Greeks and I came up with a very flat-footed mantra. And
Yeah.
it's not exactly right, but I see a lot of people wear bracelets or things, reminders that are like this. So I think that it relates to people.
Yeah.
But my idea was I needed to be ready to kill everything.
Yeah.
And, not in a bloody sort of way,
Right.
but
Right.
any idea, any
Yeah.
theory, I need to be willing. I even looked up flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
I actually, during those years, I thought, what do I know if the Earth is actually a sphere?
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
there's something to this. And I went to a computer and
Yeah.
typed it, and I went to the Flat Earth Society, and they said, the government's lying to you. All these pictures are made up. And I said,
Right.
well, that's really
Yeah.
stupid. I don't believe that. And I
Yeah.
moved on. But I was
Yeah.
willing to question it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Having open enough mind to, if someone makes an argument about something, then as a true scientist, you just kind of explore that. And so
Yes.
what really is your argument? Yeah.
I had back then, as a freshman in college, when I was reading all these things, I had hair down to my shoulders.
Uh huh.
My
Yeah.
hair was so long.
Yeah.
And it was never because I liked long hair. I thought I
Yeah.
looked ridiculous. I thought I looked like an ugly girl. But I grew it out because at every stage of my hair, everybody would tell me, "Oh, you have such beautiful thick hair. Oh my gosh, you have such beautiful hair." So I would grow it more and people would go, "Oh my gosh, your hair." To the point that, this is like sitting at my shoulders and other people in my life are all like, "Oh, Mike's got the hair,
Yeah.
it was all about this hair." And I hated it. And
Yeah.
so, as I was, it started to become a symbol to me of
Yeah.
my indecision of going, I don't know what to do with it. So it just
Yeah.
sits
Yeah.
and it's something else that other people want from me and not something that I chose for myself. And so I went to the store, I bought hair clippers and I just shaved it all off. I just shaved it down to the skin.
Uh-huh.
And, everybody in my life is just like, why did you do that? You had such beautiful hair. Why would you do that? You
Yeah.
know, and everybody's just like, you've gone crazy. But that was a real marker for me
Yeah.
of I am willing to kill everything and I'm
Yeah.
willing to take it back. If I don't understand it, even if it was right, maybe I
Yeah.
had great hair down to my shoulders. I don't
Right.
think it was looking back at pictures, but even if it was,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to what I think, and I'll learn that I was wrong, and then have to regrow back out. But I'm going to do everything that I actually understand, and so I think oftentimes it's pushing yourself in those smaller moments and those
Yes.
smaller insights. To be honest with yourself,
Yeah.
it's shocking how much you'll be rewarded,
Yeah.
and your mind will start to say, well, if you can handle that about your hair, let me
Yeah.
tell you this about your career choice.
That's right. Yeah. I think what you're saying is like, be willing to kill. Is that what you're saying is don't get so attached to some version of yourself or anything or any
Mm,
factual things that you collect, any belief system. Be
yes.
willing to challenge it and if necessary, kill it. As in, just let it go and
Yeah.
let something else grow in its place.
The
Right?
real problem at Cobalt at the time that I was talking about it, we had,
Yeah.
our people
Yeah.
going on 30, was that we were a bureaucracy. That
Ah,
was the real problem. And now
yeah.
everybody thinks we're at a startup. We're agile.
Yeah.
These old behemoths, they're slow moving.
Yeah.
Well, the old behemoths aren't necessarily slow moving.
Right. Right.
You go to a place like Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon's map. I worked with Amazon for a number of years. They still make very fast decisions on a lot of
Yes.
very big projects.
Yeah.
And they're huge. We were tiny, and we would have. I remember I was going to demo a robot one time, and I said, "Let's bring this robot out to a potential customer. Let's demo it." And they said, "Oh, we're not able to get it out." Well, why? Oh, we need to give 2 weeks notice
Yeah.
before any demo.
Hmm. Hmm.
Go, to who? They go, the guy who set up the demos. I go, doesn't he work for me? I go to this guy and I'm like, what is this 2-week demo stuff? And he's like,
Yeah.
well, otherwise, I'm the one who looks stupid because I go out there and the demo doesn't work. So you need to tell me 2 weeks before. I need all of the Wi-Fi information. I need all that. And I go, you are a bureaucrat. I said, you're worse than
Yeah.
the Pentagon.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we had become, though, is just too many people understanding each other, too many
Yeah.
evolved people sitting around and going, oh, was that hard? Okay, I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just keep at it. And I guess we don't
Yeah.
have a timeline because it's a hard problem to solve.
Yeah.
That's where we lived. And so we lived in, mush. We lived in a swamp. We lived in this slow moving, sludging organization. Even though we're
Yeah.
60 people.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
supposed to be moving fast. We're supposed to be able to make fast decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And there's one more question I have about this specific situation, and then I want to move to the exciting stuff of the future, right? The who question, right? Because and especially for you, what you had built at the time, and I think you still believe you still have that issue, which is that you are a startup, a venture funded startup. So you have but you have co-founders, right? So you have fellow founders. And then you have obviously your organization, you have people with probably considerable egos, who are building robots and things like that. These are PhDs probably, and all the credentials that you can think of. And then you have the investors, right? And investors are probably kind of saying, hey, I'll put, they're looking their hit. If they believe the statistics, they invested in 20 companies and they're looking for that one hit. And they're going to each one of these companies and they're saying, they're pushing you for that hit, right? So they can go, hockey stick. So or at least cash out at a certain valuation or something like that, right? And there is a cash out event. So any I mean, we can have a whole podcast just on this question, right? But in a nutshell, any thoughts on how you can manage these different people from this perspective of the the three parts of the soul kind of
Yeah.
an angle?
You
How
know,
do you handle them?
I
If
really
that's
think,
the
I mean,
right
I,
word. Yeah.
I think what you're talking about, all of these different stakeholders, is the
Yeah.
major reason that startups die. I think that's the
I'm
number one.
sorry. Can you repeat that?
That is the number one reason that startups die is
Yes.
management of all these different stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stakeholders all want different things. And, I see it in movies all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
I used to think when I was a kid, every movie that you watched was somebody's baby. And somebody was like, this is the greatest movie. And
Yes.
what you start to realize, when you turn on Harold the Purple Crayon or Benji or something,
Right.
you actually had very cynical investors that were like, there's big audience for Benji.
Yeah.
Let's throw together. There's some
Yeah.
screenwriter that was like, well, at least I have this that I can get
Yeah.
paid for while I'm doing what I care about. You have a
Right.
director who's like, yeah, I guess if I do this one, I can probably work my way up to something better. I mean, you have
Yeah.
all these cynical characters in it, and nobody thinks that the movie's good.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
thinks that it's their big break. Nobody's trying to make it that good.
Right.
Everybody's just kind of going through the motions. That that is what startups are. When
Yeah.
when I go to failing startups, they're filled with cynical actors that are all just kind of moving things forward, and usually a founder at the middle that wishes that it could be great, but
Yeah.
going, why does nobody care? Why is everybody here if they don't care? And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
very, very confused by this.
Yeah.
And that again, that's where I go to what it means to train and employ this lion is
Yes.
you've got to have that passion in yourself
Yeah.
to say, I want to make this good. That's what
Yeah.
I'm here for. And
Right.
it doesn't need to be, I never thought that security robots were a good idea. I never woke
Mhm.
up and thought, we really need security robots in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never thought that, right?
Right.
But there's this, sorry, I'm all over the place on this, but there's a
That's okay.
Canadian show I love called Slings and Arrows, and it's
Yeah.
about a little Shakespeare troupe that's putting on plays.
Right.
And that the director, it's the last show of the season, and the audience is a bunch of kids throwing pennies at the actors. Nobody's paying attention,
Yeah.
and he's still giving the actors notes.
Yeah.
And the actor goes, Jeffrey, to the director, what are you still giving me notes for? It's filled with a bunch of school kids. Nobody cares about this. We're all
Yeah.
just here finishing this. We have a big party coming up. It's over. Stop. And,
Right.
and he says, I can't stand to see these words by Shakespeare recited
Yeah.
poorly. I can't stand to see
Yeah.
actors owning it in. I can't stand to see bad performances. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is that lion of somebody's got to be there. And this to me is the essential role of a leader.
Yeah.
Say, I hate seeing it done badly. I
Yes.
can't stand it. I can't stand waking up and
Yeah.
watching a bunch of people drag themselves to work. I can't stand myself, sitting in a Monday morning meeting talking about the same issues that we did last Monday with nobody taking real action on them. I
Yeah.
can't stand us not knowing how to handle our customers not liking our product
Yeah.
because we're not willing to have hard discussions with each other about whatever it is.
Yes.
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And that to
Yeah.
me, that is training that lion to not go off the rails and,
Yeah.
have a temper tantrum and go, everything here's screwed up. Everybody knows bosses like that.
Yeah.
Or to be
Yeah.
somebody that can actually sit there and go, well, okay, marketing, this happened to me. Marketing.
Yeah.
How come you said you had 1 million impressions last month? We had 1 million people that looked at our brand and
Yeah.
sales 0.
Yeah.
And is sales, they're just that bad at bringing you through,
Yeah.
right? And forcing the conversation because
Right.
that is what is implicitly being said between 1 million impressions on marketing and 0 sales.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
sales not pulling it through, and
Right.
sales implicitly saying marketing is not getting us the right leads.
Right.
So having the lion is bringing that conversation up and going, you can't both be right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. And it seems to me like, and you're also kind of implying that there is the reason why they get angry is because there's a standard or there are standards. So they have a standard in mind as to how things should be. Like, Steve Jobs, right? He was angry a lot.
Yeah.
And he used to get in people's face and, point, like nose to nose, like almost touching them. And he would scream at them because he had a certain idea of whatever the product that he was working on, what it should be like. And if he didn't meet that standard, then he would react that way, right? So it's that anger that is quote unquote the right anger, probably. Then the anger that comes from resentment or
Yeah.
other things, right? Insecurities and things like that.
And that's what I used to say, because I get accused a lot at my companies, and kind of, just kind of anywhere, that people will go like, "Hey, you're not understanding the team. You're not
Yeah,
understanding all of our hardships." And I would tell them, "No, I understand the customer,
ah,
and I am the voice of the customer. The
yeah,
voice of the customer is
yeah,
pissed off."
right,
Now, our actual customers were very nice. Again, these
yeah,
are nice corporate places. They, you sit with them
right,
and they go, "We understand. We understand." It was
yeah,
a little tough for us. We thought that demo was going to go better for the CEO.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
everybody's very nice,
right,
but internally they're
yeah.
pissed.
Oh
They put their
yes,
reputation on the line to bring in a new technology, and
yeah,
we squandered it, and we made them look like idiots.
yeah,
They are angry, and so the voice of the customer needs to be angry, and
yeah,
that's what I was coming back with, was somebody's got to speak up for this poor
yes,
customer,
yeah,
or else they're never going to get what they want.
yeah,
They're going to get a bunch of excuses, and that's all
yeah,
through life.
yeah,
That's what you're, if you only set yourself to understanding your problems and the things that are in your way, you will fail, and you'll have great excuses. You'll have the
right,
greatest excuses for why you lost.
yeah,
You will
yes,
not have any victories.
absolutely. And Cobalt was you exited, right? And then Foundation Robotics, right? Foundation. So that's your current company, and you building this $50 billion future, right? How did this come into play? This whole idea of learning, Mike LeBlanc has to learn and grow from being a founder who exited to being a builder of this even bigger vision, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Any transition, any things to share in terms of how you evolve into that mindset, or have you not yet?
It was so
Yeah,
interesting. So when we sold Cobalt,
yeah,
I thought, uh, okay, the big lesson here was don't do hardware again.
y-
That was the big lesson. And because I was
uh-huh,
sitting and I was trying to think, what did I learn? What do you
yeah,
learn? I
yeah,
thought
yeah, yeah,
hardware is not the way.
yeah,
I should be doing an enterprise software. I'm
yeah,
very good at selling to these big companies.
right,
We had Uber and Salesforce and Amazon and
yeah,
City FedEx. We had big names that we were able to sell into.
right,
And I thought we should have been doing a software that
yeah,
would have been very easy to iterate on, make better. I could do really well in that. And that was kind of my big takeaway. I went and had breakfast with Alfred Lin at Sequoia, who's on our board,
right,
and I told him that insight, that I was like, he's like, well, what company do you think about doing next? And I'm like, never hardware.
mm,
And he just goes like, he's like, well, SpaceX is a hardware company, and Tesla and Apple,
mm,
and hardware is not the problem,
yeah,
right? He's like,
yeah,
any business that you pick, it's always going to have its challenges.
yeah,
And he said, you're really cut out for the challenges of hardware. He's like, it takes this grit and this operational willingness to just
yeah,
keep pushing to fix these things.
yeah,
Because we had almost 1,000 robots out in 9 countries, on 4 continents. We
yeah,
had, we had 350 people. There was just a lot. There was a lot to manage at
yeah,
Cobalt.
yeah,
And he said, no, that grit that you have to do that, he's like, that's what nobody else does.
hmm,
So that's what you want to use in the market. And that was, that was a key insight to me, that I go, what I learned was not knowledge about business that I could have learned from a book beforehand.
right,
It was all of these tiny operational details. It was all of this,
yes,
learning my ability to actually, use my anger, in a way to actually, push people out, to figure out how are we going to fix all of these robots. And
yeah,
hardware just makes it, all the more abundant that there are failures in reality, right?
yes,
So
yeah,
everybody sees, when a software glitches, everybody goes, I don't know what happened there. But
yeah,
when a robot runs into the wall, everybody's
yeah,
like, it wasn't supposed to do that.
yes, yeah,
So
right,
it's constantly faced with this harsh reality.
Yeah.
And that was his point, was no, that's really the way to go. And
Yeah.
I realized, yeah, going into robotics again, it's a great place to stay.
Yeah.
And that's, foundation. Our first product is a humanoid robot. And so, which is an even harder robot than we made at Cobalt, but a much more useful one. And so
Yes.
all
Yeah.
all the same problems are there, all the things that I've learned kind of how to overcome, but
Yeah.
mostly the style
Yeah.
with which I deal with all of this, with customers and with employees. Those were the biggest things that I learned and took with me.
Absolutely. And $50 billion vision. What is that? And how do you reverse engineer that? That was an interesting thing that I read in your bio. It's like, how do you reverse engineer, and what does that even mean?
Well, it's really interesting to think, you know, well, I had, my son had this great maze. I wish I had this maze. It's a 3D
Uh,
maze.
yeah.
And you move a little marble thing
Yeah.
all through the maze to get there.
Yeah.
And he'd been sitting with me. He'll sit with me while I do all my calls in the morning. He's 8. And he was sitting out for hours,
Yeah.
just moving this little ball around the maze. And
Right.
he's just totally focused on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally I'm off one of my calls, and he says, "Can you help me with this?" And I said, "Yeah, go get me a Sharpie."
Uh-huh.
And so we went to the end and we started drawing out, and I said, "Well, where would it need to come from if it's going to go there?" "Oh, well, it
Right.
could that's a dead end, so it must be this way." "Okay, where would it come from there? Let's follow that through for a minute." "Nope, that's a dead end too, so it
Yeah.
must be." And we just did that all the way until our little line touched the marble. And
Ah.
suddenly,
Yeah.
within a few minutes, he was able to just roll it through all of those spaces and got the marble out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that to me that's such a powerful way of operating, is
Definitely.
think,
Yeah.
what is the end and how do I get there? And
Yeah.
so, when I'm doing that, pulling out my Sharpie with,
Yeah.
50 billion-dollar company. And I think we'll be much, much larger than that. 50
Yeah.
50 billion is kind of a near-term
Yeah.
field.
Right.
Um, but, the trillion-dollar company is really where I've got to think, "Oh, how does that all work?"
Yeah.
But on 50 billion, to me, I go, what does that deck look like? What
Yeah.
does the conversation sound like when I'm pitching it? What do we need to have in place
Yes.
for an investor? I've had, thousands of conversations with investors.
Yeah.
What are they going to hear that makes them go, yes, that is worth, $50 billion? It's the same, anybody can do this watching Shark Tank. I love
Yeah.
Shark Tank with
Yes.
my kids and everything.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
But it
Mm.
is like you start to know when somebody comes in and they're asking, $100,000 for 5%.
Yeah.
The people go, all right, great product. What are the sales? They're going to ask, what are the sales? That's going to be a
Right.
key input. What do your sales need to be to justify that
Yeah.
valuation? What partnerships do you need to have? Where does your product need to be? What problem does it need to be solving? How many people are going to use it?
Yeah.
The questions in almost every investor conversation, regardless of hardware, software, or small business, are essentially the same. They're
Yes.
essentially, who's going to buy this from you, for how much, and why don't they buy it from somebody else?
Exactly.
I mean, those
Yeah.
are going to be the questions. And so you can either solve those for, small barbershop of, here's why we're the best barbershop in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
or you can solve it for, a new technology that's going to change the world,
Yeah.
right? But both of them have the same process of having to go through and ask those questions. And so,
Yeah.
I'll do that all the time. I have a big whiteboard here, and
Yeah.
we'll start going up and saying, what do we want to pitch at $50
Mhm.
billion? What do we need to be able to say?
Yeah.
And we start writing those things down, and then you start looking at each one and going, well, how will we get that
Yeah.
right? And that was what we already did. We did our, we've been at several billion that investors valued us at. We've already done this of saying, well, how many military contracts would we want to have?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
how do I get those? It all
Yeah.
starts with, oh, I've got to call that guy back.
Yeah.
That's what they all lead back to something mundane.
Right.
But
Right.
when you have that idea of what it's going to turn into,
Yes.
you start to run through these iterations much
Abs-
faster. You start to go, that's what I'm moving toward. That's, and being
Yeah.
able to stop yourself and go, this one's not turning out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
How do I ditch this and move on to another? That's the whole, to me, that is what a business day, a work day looks like,
Yeah.
is all these little actions that go toward a larger goal. And every little action that you take gives you a little more information about how possible that is, what the goal might be. and just changing based on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Love that. Fascinating to the way you describe that. It's like the details, behind the details, behind the details. So this is not just a pipe dream. It's actually, there's the, this deep thinking behind each and every one of the steps that you will take to get there.
Oh
Right.
yeah. And that
And,
for me, I've always got, this is always just big. This is 10 things I don't want to do today. That's
uh-huh.
literally says up top. I write it every day on this big sketch pad. 10 things
Uh-huh.
I don't want to do today. That one says, April 13th. It was from yesterday.
Yeah.
And I write out 10 different things.
Uh-huh.
And,
Yeah.
they are, one is, planning up. So we're setting a partnership with Lockheed Martin.
Right.
And we're doing a video with them that I want to follow up in detail. So
Right.
that means, actually spelling out, day by day, week by week, what are our touch points? What are our goals? What are our
Right.
milestones?
Right.
Kind of a complex one. Another one on there, get rid of filing cabinet.
Oh, okay.
I was really filing cabinet. I need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do either of those things.
Yes. Yes.
One of them sounds much more important than the other, but in a way, it's not. In a
Yeah.
way, those are both
El-
psychological weights on me.
Yes.
Those are
Yeah.
both things that are stopping me from moving forward. And so when I get rid of the filing cabinet and I get to cross that out off the list, my mind rewards me with new good ideas. It
Yeah.
reminds me with freedom. It
Yeah.
rewards me with freedom.
Yeah.
And so it all comes back to these very small things that it doesn't matter why they're weighing on you.
Yeah.
It does not matter, right? The
Yes.
fact that they're
Yes.
weighing on you is all that you care about.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
fix those and you'll find your good
Yeah.
idea. Don't try to get inspired. Don't go, that's what people think is, let me go sit on the beach and stare at the ocean. I'll have the best idea about my business. No,
Yeah.
you will not, right?
Yeah.
Your best
Yeah.
ideas are going to come when you finally get your desk clean. They're going to,
Mm.
you take a junk drawer and you go, I'm sick of this junk drawer being like this.
Yeah.
I want to be able to reach over and have pens. I don't want to be looking for pens around my office. I'm sick of that.
Right.
That is when you'll have the idea about what to do for your customer. That's when
Yes.
you'll have the idea about, about how to get the next valuation. That's where it all comes from, is in all of these small little things. And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
always comes back to, that's what human beings are, right? Is this kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
high divine vision
Yeah.
and this sort of animalistic execution.
Yeah. And I think you kind of answered my next question in a way, but I want to ask it anyway, just to kind of, make it more overt. How do you make sure that lion is somehow lost as you build this $50 billion and beyond vision, that you're not, you as an organization are not basically, your little man and the hydra are ganging up on the lion. How do you make sure that doesn't happen as you move forward? Because you're probably a little bit more comfortable today than you were back when you were a Marine, or even
Yep.
when you were a founder, right? So you're in that comfort zone, and I'm assuming that there is a pretty good chances that creeping in a way.
Yeah. Well, and that's been a big change is,
Yeah.
back then we had no money. My wife and I don't come from money.
Right.
We had
Yeah.
no money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're rich.
Yeah. Right.
And being rich is a great thing. I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about what my
Right.
kids are. I don't have to worry about. There
Yeah.
are many small worries in that.
Right.
And I think that's where it comes down to what is your level of ambition?
Yeah.
Because I see people that get satisfied with small amounts of money all
Yeah.
the time, and
Yes.
they even though they'll still talk about their dreams or something, but they're
Mhm.
really pretty happy doing what they're doing, and they're
Yeah.
happy because they work for 30 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yes. Yeah.
that's your vote of
Yeah.
saying, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. I'm not working that much,
Right. Right.
and for us, I think that money was never the goal. It's always been a short-term goal. We
Yeah.
love getting more money.
Who doesn't, right?
but
Yeah.
my wife and I love
Yeah.
this, but the long-term goal has always been, to do something that impacts history.
Yeah.
That was where this all started. That's why I joined the Marines.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to be a general. I wanted to be Secretary of Defense.
Right.
That was kind of my track that I wanted,
Yeah.
because I wanted to influence history and how the world developed.
Right.
And I think when you get, when you get your first $1,000,000, that's the test of if you really wanted it, right?
Yes.
When
Yeah.
when all the kind of daily problems start to
Yeah.
go to the side, do you still care?
Mm.
Or were you just telling yourself that and it was actually about the money? And, for us, it is, everything that I do is so much smaller than what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And, it may be on that's somebody else's, it could be on their goals list to kind of be with where we're at. But to us, until it's a $1 trillion company, until we're a name that's recognized all around the earth, until we have robots, on every continent, including Antarctica,
Oh,
and
wow.
country, we haven't done the job, and
Yeah.
we're embarrassingly small compared to that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what where you continue to get into yourself to go, no, you're exactly right. I love the way you're saying this because the Hydra, the
Yeah.
comfortable part of you, starts going, let's not rock the boat. We've got a good
Yeah.
market going. We've got
Right.
it happening.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy, so don't mess with me. And then
Yeah.
the rational mind is going, well, why change things for
Yeah.
more risk?
Right. Yeah.
We don't want to invite risk back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just stay where we're at. We're making a profit. Let's just keep on cooking.
Exactly.
Those
Exactly.
two are the ones having the conversation. And
Yeah.
so it needs to be this third part, this lion, this ambition, this anger,
Yeah.
this part of you that knows
Yeah.
we're never done.
Yes.
It's never good enough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've just got to figure out what to do with your business. I was
Yeah.
going around, I was going to buy after Cobalt. I had this thought that defense is going to be spending a lot more. They're going to spend a lot more money for defense. So you can go to all of these contract manufacturers who have CNC machines and they make whatever part for a plane, or something like
Yeah.
that. But they're all over America, and you can buy these companies for a couple $1,000,000 each. And I
Right.
thought, I'm going to scoop up a bunch of these because it's
Yeah.
just an investment. I'll buy 10 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll improve their operations a little bit, so we'll already get a little bit of alpha there, and then the wave is going to carry us all up because there's going to be so much more defense spending.
Yeah.
So that was my thought. The interesting thing was when you go into these places, there's this thought, that, well, they've been running the business for 40 years. They know what they're doing. There aren't going to be ways to change it. And there's another thought that is an arrogant thought that's like, well, I can change it. But what
Yeah.
actually happens when you go and talk to these guys that have been running for the company forever,
Yeah.
they know exactly what their business needs to do to change. They know
Yes.
and they are right.
Yeah.
So you go into these guys
Mhm.
and you're walking around and I'd be piecing together like there's no tracker. There's no
Yeah.
shared tracker of where they are. Like that
Yeah.
would be a very
Yeah.
helpful thing for all these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sit down with the guy and he goes, now if you wanted to really blow this thing up, you need to have a shared tracker that everybody sees. I mean, they know all of these things. Why
Yeah.
aren't they doing them? Because they've got other interests in life.
Exactly.
And they're at a point in their lives that they go, no,
Yeah.
this one's running. It's great.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
the money we need, but I love fishing. I love this or that.
Yeah.
It's not a stupidity issue.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
Everybody always thinks you're going to solve it with the little man. It's not
Yeah.
the little
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. The shame isn't there yet, which
Right.
can turn into anger, right? That,
Yes.
I'm ashamed of the fact that we're not kind of optimizing this, right? And then
Yes.
that needs to turn. Like you used a very very telling phrase just now, just 2 minutes ago, which is that we're embarrassingly small. You said we're
Yes.
embarrassingly small. That's an indication to me of shame, right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is not good enough, right? We're too small, right?
Yes.
And then behind that is this anger. That what is it that we need to do to get bigger, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
And that's always that feeling is like when you can tap
Yeah.
into that.
yeah,
That's why it's a spiritual journey more than it is a career journey.
absolutely, yeah,
It's not, it doesn't really matter what, where you are on the y-axis, right? Your slope is determined by how much you are willing to relook what you're doing and
yes,
say, this isn't working. The New England Patriots have to
yeah,
do this. They have to
yes,
sit around and go, what are we doing wrong?
absolutely,
They,
100%,
they
yeah,
can't go, well, look, we're obviously great. We've won all these, Super Bowls. We're
right,
pretty good. Let's just keep doing what we're doing.
yeah,
Those guys are still in there going, man, I don't know. This guy's just he's not pulling away. What are we going to do about it?
right, yeah,
They're
exactly,
handling all the hard, small issues over and over again because they go, we need to be greater. We need to be greater still.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that point, Mike LeBlanc in Annapolis, going to college, and Mike LeBlanc today, right? Envisioning this future. By the way, the book that it's about to be published, right?
Yeah.
It's what's
August 25th. What if anger is the answer?
what if anger is the answer? I had written it down, and so here you are today, and back then, what is the as you look at your arc, what is the biggest change you see in yourself? You're an introspective guy, so I think this should be a fairly easy question to answer, maybe.
Yeah. The biggest change, I think, is that I'm just much more genuine now.
Ah, yes.
And
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of has their version of this. I keep noticing it with you notice it with like rappers and stuff,
Yeah.
that they all get this like alter ego.
Yeah.
Kanye
Right.
West would call himself Ye, and Eminem would
Yeah.
call him Shady. And
That's
Kobe
right.
was the Black Mamba. They have
Yeah.
these alter egos that they go with, and it's a way of, it's a persona that they can take on that helps
Yes.
them handle challenges in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of life, you want to take on those personas,
Yeah.
and you grow through them.
Right.
So you don't end up ditching them off as a total phase. You kind of integrate the parts that were there that you
Yeah.
needed,
Yeah.
and you move forward. And for me, back then when I was in college, I was extremely ambitious.
Mhm.
I very much, at 19 years old, you'd say, Mike, what are you going to be someday? And I said, President of the United States. It's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to be President of the United States.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to spend all these years doing.
Awesome.
And you have that level of ambition,
Yeah.
but you still have this part of you that's going, no, I'm going to play the Marine role, and I'm going to turn on all the parts of me that are like a Marine, and I'm going to be, I love the idea of being just so hard on myself, so hard on everybody else. I loved that idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you start to take those on. Then, I got out of there and I started wearing my button downs and slacks.
Yeah.
And I was at Morgan Stanley, and I was like, I'm going to be an investment banker. And now I'm the finance guy. I'm going to take that military hardness and I'm going to put that here.
Right.
And I think that as that's gone on, as you have kids, as you're married, as as you go through your companies, you start to take away the basic comforts and stuff. You start to get left with, well, yeah, there's an aspect of that I like. It's a lot of what we're talking about today. But there is like, what do I actually want to do with it? How do I actually want to be? Who do I want to surround myself with?
Yeah.
And you no longer have to, you never had to do it, but take on people in your life that you didn't want there because you thought that this person's useful to me or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
You never actually had to do that. I never did.
Yeah.
Oh, I get to work with who I want to work with.
Right.
I don't take on partners or customers that I don't like.
Yeah.
I'll talk to my customers for hours each week. I need to pick ones that I genuinely like.
Mhm.
So everything in my life now is much more genuine, and I think that's
Love
also
it.
where you perform the best.
Yes, yes. And that's a well-earned insight about yourself because, you have this track record of, and the arc of being, and we haven't even touched on, the kinds of things that you did when you were the Marine and, uh, but for that, I think there is a book. So how do we get hold of you? And in this book that you've written, what's it about? Just give us in a nutshell summary, and how do we get that book, or at least get to read it? I don't think it's published yet. And then how do we get hold of you and get in touch with you for things that are important to you?
So officialmichaelblanc.com is the website that you can go to pre-order the book. It's also on Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you get books. But that's where you can learn a lot more about it. And then really, to anybody that's listening to this, either getting me on LinkedIn or just mike@foundation.bot. Those are ways to get in contact with me. And I could talk about this kind of stuff all day. I love thinking through how to transform businesses. I love doing this kind of thing. So
Awesome.
anybody that's interested, don't hesitate to just reach out.
Perfect. And we'll put all the contact information in our show notes that will be published along with the episode. And So, and I feel like we have just barely scratched the surface of the kinds of things that we talk about. We probably at least have 5 more episodes, just looking at each one of the segments that we talked about. So, hopefully, we'll be back here again in a year or two talking about some of those other things. And wish you all the best, continued success. And thank you so much for being on the show, Mike. This
Yeah,
was
thank
this
you
was
so
an
much.
awesome conversation.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you. You come in all this from such a great angle
Okay,
because
good.
it
Yeah.
is people, it's always funny when you listen to business podcasts and stuff. I love listening to business podcasts and things, but so many people get caught up in strategy.
Yeah.
And I think the whole time they're talking about it like it's a chess game, and I'm going, you guys, this
Yeah.
is the worst thing you can do for listeners is make them
Right.
think, oh, if I just had the right strategy, if I had the
Yeah.
best idea, I could do it. And then you go, no, it's
Yeah.
it's the execution, and you can't, you got to run you before you run a crew. That's what my dad always said. It's like,
Yes.
if you don't figure these things out
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
you cannot bring them to the organization. You are not the person to change an organization. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And the things that you're sharing, those things that you're talking about, has more weight simply because you're building robots. You're not saying that we can all become robots, right?
yeah,
You're
right,
saying let's go into the depths of what makes us human,
yeah,
and right, and then build the robots, right?
yes.
So that's the part I love about this exchange, this conversation.
And even, I know I should have
Yeah.
talked about it more, but even more so, just let robots do what robots do best, but you've got to figure out what humans do best, and it's not
Yes.
robotic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.